Is your organization finding it difficult to achieve compliance and scale its security posture? As G2's highest rated cloud compliance software, Drata streamlines your SOC 2, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, HIPAA, GDPR, and many more security frameworks, and provides continuous 24-hour control monitoring so you can focus on scaling securely. Drata is also the only compliance automation platform with a private tenant database. That's like having your cake and securing it too. Listeners of Business Security Weekly get 10% off Drata by visiting securityweekly.com/Drata. That's DRATA. The shift to remote and hybrid work over the past 2 years has accelerated application development on cloud infrastructure. However, securing these new assets has lagged behind. Qualys CloudView, the next generation cloud security posture management, delivers an end-to-end multi-cloud security and compliance solution encompassing the entire application lifecycle from build to runtime. CloudView enables enterprises to assess their cloud security and compliance posture, identify risks and gaps, auto-remediate issues, proactively enforce best practices, and prove compliance and audits rapidly and efficiently. Identify your most vulnerable cloud assets by visiting securityweekly.com/Qualys. Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Also, don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts and technical trainings by visiting securityweekly.com/on-demand. All right, Jason, articles for the week. And they are going to sound pretty familiar based on the last conversation we just had with Neil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know me, I try to tie the articles into the segment before. This first article is interesting, right? It talks about embracing a common business language to report on cybersecurity. But there wasn't enough in here. You know, it talks about the SPM, the security program management function, which is fine. But is that enough by itself to really create a common business language to report on cybersecurity? I felt there were some details missing in this article to really help guide people through this concept of how should we be talking and tying security back to business.
Agreed. I mean, I think it was very high level, right? It was that 40,000 foot view, and didn't really dive deep enough, I think, into the details of what does a security program management strategy consist of. I mean, it talks about, consistently having conversations with executives in business terms. It talks about using outcome-based language when you're speaking to the leadership, trying to connect the security program to key business objectives and priorities. But yeah, what does that mean? What's the detail? What are some examples, right? So you're right. I mean, it missed the mark as far as a little bit deeper dive that it could have had, but at the end of the day, that 40,000 foot view, exactly what we talked about in that previous episode in the segment about aligning to the business, right? That's number one, and really building a strategy of taking yourself out of that technical subject matter and becoming a business subject matter expert.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I brought in the second article, Tips from a CISO, How to Create a Security Program. Now here, a little more specifics, right? Here's the things you should focus on. And it ties into the conversation we had with Neil, right? Strategic positioning, engagement with the executive, how to build out a strong team, even though Neil's a one-man show right now. Communication is big on this list, right? These are the things that I think CISOs really need to focus on, which is, engagement, communication, working with the executive team. It's funny. I starting the new role, I always bring in these kind of like real life experiences. When I came in, I said, I'm not going to do anything for the first 30 days. But you have to learn. Like, you want to understand the organization. You got to understand what's going on. You got to figure out where all the little projects are and just kind of navigate yourself through. And I try to take that first 30 days to really get to that point, meeting with all the different executives. Dude, by the end of week 2, it was super clear to me, like, all right, I know what we need to do. And so I start working with the executive team. I go to my CEO. I start working with my chief revenue officer. I'm working with the VP of engineering. Like, I'm already starting that alignment across the different executive team. CISOs, you got to do the same thing. Granted, it's not exactly the same, but a lot of it is the same kind of approach and strategies to actually be successful.
Of course, yeah, and this article is great to be able to give you those different phases or approaches that you can use to really get embedded in the business. And they actually mention it under business awareness, right? Embed yourself as part of the business. Start getting involved in different business decisions, different business units, learning how the organization does business. So that way you can start assessing the current state around how those business units, assess risk and look at cyber risk. And now you can start building your strategy and, engaging. That's the key, right? Have that strategy where you're continuously engaging across the enterprise with all of your business units. And really get to learn the way the business operates. That's how you're going to build that trust. That's how you're going to be able to build those strategies. And, there's one in here that says build a strong team. And I'm a firm believer that it's not just building a team that reports into you. It's building a strong team around you as well, across the organization. Right? Because you have team members who can be part of your team, who can be evangelists for you out there in the organization in every single business unit if you build those relationships and you make them part of your team.
Yeah, exactly right. And like I said, I started at the executive level. Now I'm starting that next layer of communication because it doesn't just stop at the business executive. I got to work with the engineers, the program manager, the product managers, all the different layers, right? And so, yes, once you've got that engagement, you're starting to build your team across by getting them all on board, sharing the vision, right sizing, getting everybody engaged. I think it's so important, Jason, to your point, right? That's how these BSOs, this concept of the BSO role comes in, because you're going to find champions in those other departments that are going to be strong advocates for what you're doing, and they're going to be an extension of your team if they're not part of your direct team.
100%. And if you don't have those embedded subject matter experts within the different business units, you don't have a full team, right? You don't have a full team yet. You have a team that reports to you, but you don't have a full team.
Yeah, absolutely. The upside of playing favorites. Now, this is a very counterintuitive concept, right? That's why I brought it in here, because I'm thinking, wait, there's upside to like playing favorites? Because normally this doesn't go over very well. If you play favorites, it usually creates more of a negative culture. But here, this HBR article talks about, with the right approach, employees, managers, and leaders can build an organizational culture that celebrates positive workforce relationships and gives everyone the tools they need to grow and succeed. So it can actually be a net positive versus a net negative.
Yeah, but at this point, I would convert the word favorites to strong relationship, connection, and trust. Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not favoritism. It's having folks on your team that you emphatically trust. You have a great relationship with them, and you have a connection to the point where you can send them off to do anything and everything you want them to do, and they're going to be successful. Or they'll come back to you and ask for advice or ask for direction, right? So you can trust them. So, I think favorites is a bad connotation, because I have seen leaders who play favorites, and it's like on a personal level. They'll take their staff out to the bar. They'll have them over their house on weekends. They'll go out to dinner with families. Like, they start to play the personal favorite side. I think from a business relationship piece, having folks around you that you've built that trust and have that strong relationship and connection can be positive. There's a balance there, right? Because if staff are starting to see it as a personal favoritism, that can be really, really bad.
Yeah. That's why it's always viewed as a negative, right? Which is why I brought this article in, because who thunk it? But I do agree with you that it is about establishing relationships. It's about creating those personal connections. It's about building those relationships, because at the end of the day, work is a place for us to build relationships, right? We do this all the time. We work with these people every single day. You want to build relationships that strengthen the overall team. And some people may think it's playing favorites, it's not really. It's about building those relationships to build a strong culture and a strong team.
Exactly it. And then folks on the team have something to achieve, right? Something to look forward to. They'll want to work toward building that strong relationship with you as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Which is why I took the entire product management team out to drinks. Like I think it was like the second night I was there. Like there's nothing better to build a relationship, in my opinion, than grabbing some drinks and just shooting the shit. Like really, because I mean, it's how you start to learn about people and what's important to them, and it's really interesting. That and the ability to do it now these days is, it's so challenging, but it was great to have everybody together that we could actually do that as a team and start to build those relationships as a new employee coming in. Yeah, it's great. All right, this one, the strategic impact of the Verizon data breach incident report. Now, there's a lot of great data in here. And people who want to look up this article and get a good summary of what's in the DBIR, highly recommend it. They do a really good breakdown and analysis of some of the data that's in there. I'm going to focus on the long-term trends and conclusions because this shouldn't surprise a lot of people because they're pretty consistent from what we've seen in the past. But this goes back to our conversation with Neil earlier about you don't need necessarily the largest budget. You don't need all the tools. There's some basics in here that really revolve around people and process that are huge gaps, I think, in most security programs today. So the recurrent themes: data compromises result from external attacks. Okay, we know that. The primary motive behind cybercrime is financial gain. Okay, we know that. Most breaches are caused by stolen credentials, ransomware, and phishing. Hello? Like, this is like, oh my gosh, this is people 101. Like, this is like the foundation of part of my reason to go to Living Security. It's like, this is all people based. This is about better passwords, multi-factor authentication, not clicking on the link. Like, this is so fundamental to a security program.
Even data management best practices, right? I mean, here in Rhode Island, last year we had one of our transit authorities get breached, and one of the places that the malactor found the most sensitive data was, an end user saved a very sensitive Excel spreadsheet down to their laptop. Mm-hmm. And that was the start of all of this, 22,000 Rhode Islanders being part of this breach. So, that even down to process, we talked about it, people, process, technology, that was a process thing, right?
Right.
So at the end of the day, that end user shouldn't have been saving sensitive data down. Could there have been controls in place? Sure. But there should have been best practice and process to support it as well.
Exactly right. And we're going to cover, I think the next article is about why security awareness and training is not working. It's about understanding human behavior. It's about understanding what people are doing and which of those behaviors are the most risky so that I can actually look at ways to educate them and change that behavior. We've been talking about this for a long time, but actually doing it is something that's only recently started to really kind of bubble to the surface, Jason, right? And these are behaviors. These aren't it's people downloading a file. Well, that means our policy and procedures maybe aren't clear enough on why you shouldn't do that. Or it's because it's just not just about security awareness and training anymore. And I think that's the big challenge here is we've been doing security awareness and training for a long time, but yet this trend has not shifted. And I don't know how many years from the DBIR. It boils down to those three areas.
I mean, Matt, the crazy part is as I was reading this article, I had the opportunity a couple of years ago in 2020. The organization that I worked for at the time had its own podcast, and I had jumped on and I had the opportunity to interview Dave Grady and Jason Graff from Verizon, who helped with the 2020 DBIR report, right? And these items were there in 2020. Mm-hmm. Right. I think they had, part of it was breaches were caused by, not only ransomware and phishing and stolen credentials. I think we had misconfiguration as one of them back there as well, which is a very high target. But these high level items have not changed since then, and probably way even before that. Right. So why are we not making any headway? Why are these things still bubbling to the top?
Why do we keep spending more and more on technology, but still not fixing the core of where the breaches are happening? Like, and this is something that I think about. It's like, as a CISO, don't you think about how much you're spending? Is it effective? Is it working? Because obviously from the DBIR, there are certain things that have almost zero impact to fixing this. Now, okay, servers are attacked more than any other asset. Okay, so yes, I probably have to have some good EDR in place to protect those devices. But all the other spend that I'm doing, is it actually working? Or are we just spending the money for the sake of spending the money? This is what just irks me, Jason. It's like, let's go spend the money on the right stuff. If we know it's a people problem, then let's go figure out the people problem. Or the process problem.
Like I said in the last segment, the easy button doesn't exist. Changing people's hearts and minds is hard. Changing process is hard. The easy one is go buy technology that the marketing says it's going to fix it all for you, right? Why am I going to spend a year trying to influence departments to change process to just get to the point of being able to execute 12 months later to get that process to change? Or am I just going to stick a piece of technology in there that says it's going to solve it for me? Well, it never does. It never does because, number one, you have to have a good process for that shiny technology to work. And if your process sucks, it's not going to work. So, and then you have to have the bandwidth to adopt all the technology for it to work. And, I said it in the last segment, most organizations are adopting about 20% of the technologies they spend money on. So it's a recipe for disaster.
It is. And look, it really, if you have a malicious employee, they're going to find a workaround anyways. Right? I think they will. But most of this is not necessarily malicious. It's just not having strong kind of understanding of why it's important so that they don't do the behavior. If you have a true insider that wants to do something malicious, it's going to be hard. Just like an attacker. If an attacker comes in low and slow, nothing has to happen fast, they're going to find ways around certain controls. They just are. That's what these guys do very, very well. And so, yes, in a very specific malicious insider threat or external hacker environment, they're going to find ways. But for the basics, let's do something that's actually going to work and stop wasting our money on all these other things.
And this over time since I've been here on BSW, I'm a strong advocate for cyber awareness to the end user in the user community to be tied to their personal lives. Things that they can take home and protect their family and their own bank account. That's all going to translate back to the workplace. It 100% will. And to be honest with you, it's going to make them pay attention more, right? And you don't sit there and have end users have to sit through an hour and a half, 90 minutes worth of cyber awareness training that's, click a button, watch a video, take a quiz. No, it's got to be these quick, modern. We live in an instant gratification society. Our society lives off of Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat. And we need to have these quick 1-minute videos that make an impact really fast. Something people can read in 150 characters, right? To make an impact. And if they want to dive in deeper, provide a link with some more knowledge. But we have to have these quick education mediums that we're putting in front of people for it to make an impact.
Yeah. And if you can tie them to behavior, even better, because it's reinforcing. Article number 5, cybersecurity training boring and largely ignored. 2/3 of employees don't bother to pay attention to cybersecurity training, and the fault does not lie with them. Duh.
That's it. Agreed. What we just said. Boom. Rewind the last 30 seconds and replay it.
Exactly right. It's just so obvious, because if it were working, like the DBI report would be different. Like the data, the trends in there would be different, and they're not because, anyways.
You know what? Maybe this is the same. Maybe it's a symptom of the same actions that we take in cybersecurity in general, where we talked about it earlier, where many organizations are compliance focused.
Yep.
Well, their cyber awareness is a compliance metric, right? Stop being compliance focused.
Exactly
really be
right.
out there to change. Be out there to change the outcome and change hearts and minds and educate people on how to behave differently.
Yeah, because just because I have to do annual training because of a compliance requirement doesn't mean that anybody's paying attention and it's moving the needle. But if you can associate training to known behaviors to try to change and influence behavior, the tie to the behavior and the reinforcement of the training will start to make an impact, right? That's how we're going to change this. You're exactly right. It's not the compliance mentality here. It is truly about understanding risky behavior and allowing training to be very targeted.
Yeah. And Matt, I'm connecting the dots, right? It's not an easy button. You just don't go out and get this platform that has all this, prefab education that's not tied to your company. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't just go out there and buy just a generic platform. You have to have a business partner who can come in and help you with cyber awareness. If that's the avenue you want to take, it's not an easy button.
Correct.
It's not an easy button.
And use cases vary customer to customer, Jason. That's the other thing,
exactly.
Right? Maybe in your organization is about third-party risk. That's a different use case than account takeover, which is a different use case than insider threat. You also have to get very focused around what problems are you trying to solve, and then the best way to solve those problems based on a much broader population. And it's not just awareness and training. There's a lot of other variables that go into the model that have to be accounted for. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Last article, Jason, is make shy employees part of your cybersecurity strategy. And I was thinking about this when you meet new people, you start to understand kind of, who are those people that are a little more introverts versus extroverts, right? In the terminology that they use, some people are very comfortable in public and being out there. Others aren't. And this article really focuses on those people that they're not antisocial, but they're a little more. They kind of keep to themselves, but they're an important part of a cybersecurity strategy. So this article talks about, how do you involve them? How do you get them to buy in to aspects of the cybersecurity program and the strategies? And this article lays out a few good tips on how to do that. And a lot of it, again, it goes back to communication, folks. Like, smaller groups.
And knowing your audience.
Audience, right? And different channels for communication. Like, again, all this though just kind of went right back to a communication discussion.
Totally, right? I mean, at the end of the day, diversity in general in your cybersecurity strategy is extremely important, right? Diversity in general, and then knowing that folks communicate differently and are comfortable with different things, you make sure you want to handle that, right? I mean, if you can get some folks who could bring really good opinions to the table, but that they're a little bit more introverted, have small subcommittee groups. Have a handful of people in a room where you can have conversations open. One of the things I did in my organization, we kept it small, and this is for the company as a whole, but it could work for cybersecurity as well. Is we have an employee advisory board that we started, right? Where it's 6 or 7 people. We wanted, diversity across the organization. And I'll tell you, a lot of people when they started were introverted, very introverted. And they, until they got comfortable with having conversations, it took, a few months for them to actually open up. And now it's incredible. Some of the folks that I thought were the most introverted in the organization are now, key stakeholders in the group with great ideas and great strategies that we can bring to the table. And that can work in cybersecurity as well. Have small advisory groups that you can put out there.
Yeah, because not everybody's going to feel comfortable in a large group to kind of put it out there, right? That's why I use one-on-ones as well as small team meetings as mechanisms, because in a one-on-one, you can have a very direct conversation understand kind of what's important to them, bring that into a small group discussion before it gets put into a larger group, because some people don't feel comfortable in the larger group settings. Right. And so you just have to understand that and build your meeting structures and your communication structures around those different sizes.
100% it. Diversity is key. So make sure you're including those folks who may not be comfortable speaking out there in front of the whole team.
Exactly right. Jason, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.